The college football playoff, Cedric. Let's talk about the playoff. You said earlier you think Oklahoma is going back, which says to me you think they're winning the Big 12 championship game. Is it gonna just take a win for Oklahoma to get into that top four? Or if Utah wins the Pac-12 game, how does that change the equation? Utah right now ahead of Oklahoma in those college football rankings. How does that all shake out in your mind's eye?
Well, Baylor is a top 10 team. And if OU beats a top 10 CFP team, that's more impressive than Utah beating number 13 Oregon. And so as long as no shenanigans happen, like Georgia beating LSU, we as Big 12 people, we don't need to see that. We don't need to give the CFP an opportunity to put two SEC teams in there. We don't need to see that. So Baylor loses to OU, and even if Utah beats Oregon, I think Oklahoma will get that number 4 spot.
I think it's going to be really interesting. You know, you look at the teams that are in that top 4 already. You know, you're talking about LSU, Clemson, Ohio State, pretty solidly in the top 3. You know, even if Ohio State and Clemson lose, I think there's a lot of people that are of the mind that they might still make the playoff. I don't know if that's true. Clemson's body of work, not a lot of impressive wins on their resume, so maybe that changes some things, but at the same time, I don't know if I see either of those teams losing. But then the questions start to arise, as Cedric said, with the SEC and the Pac-12. Cedric, it's interesting that Pac-12 game is Friday night again. They've sort of settled into the Friday night time slot with that championship game. So going into Saturday's Big 12 game, even though it's an 11 o'clock kick, we're going to know what's happened with Utah and Oregon. If Utah blows out Oregon by 30, I don't know, whatever big number you want to throw out there, does that change? Do style points for Oklahoma potentially become more interesting and more important? I don't know. The selection committee sounds like they've been very impressed by Utah's dominance, though.
And they are. And I'll be honest, the only time I saw Utah is when they lost to USC, and they looked bad that night.
Yeah.
But in all the other games that I've read about, they've been really, really good. I wonder about style points, Jen. I don't know. I think if Oklahoma just takes care of business and wins solidly by 10 or more points, I don't think they can keep OU out of the CFP. Their resume is good, and I've said it before, Jenni, Carlson, they're a big dog in the Big 12. If Texas or OU are in the mix, they're gonna get that benefit of the doubt. Utah is a great program. Utah is not Oklahoma. So to me, if the Sooners win, and it's an impressive win, even if it's a close win, I think with their record, having beaten all but one team that they played, and let's not get it twisted, K-State was better than we thought they'd be, 8-4, Jen.
Yeah.
That is impressive.
Yeah.
So as long as OU takes care of business, I don't think that they're going to be denied a seat at that table.
You know, I think that's an interesting point, sort of the pedigree of Oklahoma and that powerhouse, blue blood, whatever you want to say, those programs. There's an interesting sort of debate that I've heard sort of bubbling up, and I think it started with ESPN. I'm sure they're trying to create some drama with this to a degree, but the comment was made somewhere along the line in recent days that nobody wants to see Utah in the playoff. Now, I think that's very...
That was Five-Bomb, I think.
I think that's pretty short-sighted for a lot of reasons, but, you know, it seems like every year we get into the playoff and everybody's saying, why do I have to watch the same teams every year? So now there's a chance for a different team to get in there. I'm not saying that keeps Oklahoma out or that puts Utah in, but it's an interesting debate for fans to have, because this whole idea of nobody wants Utah, I'm not sure that's true, first of all. And secondly, it would be a team that we haven't had in the playoff yet. We're going to have a playoff without Alabama for the first time in playoff history. So maybe it's time to do something really different and let Utah in there. But I think it is all going to come down to this weekend. I mean, I think they're super close when you hear what Rob Mullins, the Oregon AD, who's the head of the selection committee, what he has said about the debates that are happening within that selection committee room. It definitely sounds like there's a lot of hard conversations being had right now about Utah and Oklahoma. And obviously they're both going to have one more game for everybody to look at. It's going to be really important. But Cedric, if the playoff ends up being, if things sort of play out, if we get, chalk at the end of the day, if you've got LSU winning, Clemson winning, Ohio State winning, let's say Utah gets in. What about that playoff? Are you interested in those 4 teams playing it off here in a few weeks?
I'll always be interested in the CFP. I think that's fun. I hope they expand it to 8 teams eventually, Jen, because I think there's always 8 really good teams that are good enough to win a championship in a given season. No disrespect to Utah, but I don't want Utah in the CFP. But if Utah makes it to the CFP, I will be watching. So I would hope that the Boomer Sooners would be in the CFP because I like watching them play football. And I like Lincoln Riley. He's been on my podcast. He's a good guy. So if they win, I'm all in on the Sooners. And hopefully we'll get to see them play for a national championship. They're a very good team.
Going to be interesting. Here's a wild card I'll leave you with. If Baylor wins the Big 12 championship game, what's the debate about Baylor and potentially Utah filling that 4 spot? Let's see what happens.
That's great. Jen, that's a discussion because Baylor is not a blue blood.
No.
But I do think that if Baylor beats OU impressively, then Baylor might get a chance. I don't know that Baylor trumps Utah, but I will say this. I like the Baylor Bears. I like Matt Rule.
Yep.
He's been on my podcast. He's a good guy.
They also play defense, and we know the selection committee likes teams that play defense. So that bears watching if Baylor wins that championship game, what that discussion becomes.